Imagine being on your computer, busy with work on the brink of burnout, when you receive a message that tells you to relax and take the rest of the day off for the benefit of your mental health. This is the goal of Erudit, a software company that uses algorithms to predict and prevent employee burnout. Hi, my name's Sam Brake here and welcome to Brains Bite Back, the podcast looking at our brains on technology. In the same way that Netflix strives to understand each individual user and offers them options tailored for them, Erudit wants to do the same to reduce employee burnout, understanding what they need to stay mentally healthy and well. To understand how this software works and how it was created, we are joined by Ricardo Michel Reyes, alongside Pablo Gil Torres, the CPO of Erudit. In this episode, you will learn the difference in difficulty when identifying meaning between Germanic languages such as German, English and Dutch, and Romance languages such as Spanish, French and Italian. You will also learn about the origins of how they created their natural language processing algorithm and how their software advises companies when an employee is close to burnout. In addition to this, Pablo and Ricardo explain how they developed their own psychological theory named semantic analysis based on math and linguistics. And if you enjoy this topic, then some previous episodes of Brains Bite Back that you might enjoy are why data scientists and social scientists need each other, teaching emotional regulation through children's video games, and suicide prevention using predictive AI. And if you really like this episode, then don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Disclosure: this episode contains a client of an Espacio portfolio company. Would you be able to introduce yourselves, Ricardo, perhaps if you want to go first, and Pablo, if you want to follow, and just tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves and your background and what you do for the company Erudit.
Yeah, so Erudit was born about a year and 3 months ago, last year. So I'm the chief technology officer of the company, and I'm in charge of developing all the neural networks that allow us to interpret user messages and measure burnout, engagement, and frictions among them. I have two other people in charge who are psychologists and who help us validate that whatever the neural networks do, they do it according to, or at least measuring against actual psychology models. So we developed our own psychology theory called semantic analysis, which is, I would say, a branch of, or at least related to cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's a bit different because it's based on math and linguistics. So what we tried to achieve was to make psychology a natural science and not a social science, because social sciences have the bad fame of being inexact and interpretative. So we kind of built up psychology from scratch using set theory, which is a branch of math, and then from there developing logic and then linguistics and trying to measure language against that and then correlate it to psychological traits. So I'm in charge of all the research and with the team of developing all the neural networks that we use in the software.
So I'm Pablo Gil, and I'm the responsible for product, the CPO. So what I do is I help our team to figure out what is the best way to take that amazing technology that Rick's team builds, and to give it a wrapper helps our customers reach that value. So basically understand which features need to be placed on top in order to extract the most value from that technology.
Awesome. And Pablo, if you could go a little bit further, I know we've discussed like how Erudit works, but would you be able to explain like the main goal, like why this company was set up and what it aims to achieve?
Well, mainly what it wants to do is it wants to empower people to have better conversations with their colleagues. In a way, basically what we want to do is to get something as ethereal and as subjective as people's emotional states, and be able to provide a more rigorous and up-to-date understanding of what people are going through. So HR departments can use their people management skills and their empathy to hone in the places where they are needed the most. We just want to, for companies and employees, to basically reach a level of happiness or at least tranquility, and basically help people that are responsible for the well-being of the company to focus their efforts in the right places.
Awesome. Yeah, I really wanted to have you folks on here because obviously 2020 has been a difficult year for many of us, and I can honestly say that it's forced us to adapt to a new way of working, and I think it's been quite stressful in that sense, especially since it's hard to have that line drawn between your personal life and your work life, and the two have become very overlapped this year. And just generally not being able to go out, socialize, not being able to live our normal lives, it's stressful. So I'm really interested to see how this company can help, and now more than ever, I guess, when it comes to employee burnout. Ricardo, you went into a little bit there. Maybe if you want to expand on that, and like, how is employee burnout and friction between departments measured in real time?
Yeah, so we started working with companies here in Spain on a completely different problem that was measuring skills, hard and soft skills that they had. Then we realized that companies also wanted to measure how their mental health was. The way they used to do it was using surveys. A lot of companies have like massive surveys for maybe each 6 or 12 months. Some of them even every 2 years. So that's a lot of time intervals. A lot of companies have a very fast firing and hiring cycles. So a lot of the times between 2 years, like people don't even exist in the service because they have come and go very, very fast. So we realized that there should be a real-time tracking software. The problem is that with service, that would be very hard because people don't like to solve service every week or every month. Let's not say every day. So we have to do something that had nothing to do with the employee being active. So Alejandro, my partner and CEO, found out that maybe the way was to measure the communication tools instead of service. So we developed on that. So he had an agreement with IBM, and we started an MVP with Watson. Then we realized that Watson wasn't enough. So we started creating our own neural networks over the Myers-Briggs personality test, which is one of the main personality tests and the most popular and easy to use. It was made famous by a company called 16 Personalities. So a lot of people know it and they say like, oh, I am INFP or INENFJ, or it's like a 4-letter combination of 16 different personalities. So we train neural networks to measure against that. But then the Jung theory or the Myers-Briggs theory broke when it was done per day, because these are theories that are based on like a psychotherapist or someone measuring this over a long period of time, and huge tests of like 50 or 70 words. So the correlation between very little text with these Myers-Briggs traits was very weak. So we knew we had to create like a whole new branch of psychology to be to be able to measure precisely real time. So we first tried like every hour, but every hour is too fast, and people don't change that much in an hour. So we decided to do it just daily. So right now we have a daily measure of people's emotions, personality. We can know the granularity across the day, but we realize that we need at least a day to be actually able to measure it. So we tried not to go far from what already exists, so that it can be useful for people who already know personality theory and for managers that are already used to psychometric tests. So we can measure against that. We are able to give our results in existing theories, but we created a whole new branch of psychology to be able to interpret text and then translate that text into psychological traits. So that's what the semantic analysis is. It's just taking the text from tools like Microsoft Teams or Zoom, Slack, and then correlating that to burnout frictions. These are traits that Pablo and his team chose, because that's what we found out that people in companies wanted, like managers, but the theory is very open. Like we can measure against whatever psychological trait. It can be measured by Big Five or DISC or Myers-Briggs or any other psychometric test. We just chose these ones because that's what the market demanded.
Okay. And maybe Pablo, maybe you can answer this, or Ricardo, whoever feels most comfortable, but would you be able to give examples of what this like algorithm, or what would it infer from certain sentences? Maybe you could give us an example of a sentence and then how it would infer that sentence, if that's possible.
Okay, so there are words in a sentence that have meaning and words that are just there to help the meaning come through in the sequence, right? So it depends on the language. Like English is very dependent on a lot of things that Spanish is not dependent on. So for example, in Spanish, you can say come, and that's enough to say you eat, right? And you should eat, and eat now. So it conveys, just one word conveys a lot of meaning. So in the case of European languages, like Germanic languages, like English or Dutch or German, are very different from Latin or Romance languages like Spanish, French, Italian, in how they convey meaning. So we develop separate neural networks for English and for Spanish. We work in both languages to be able to sense the grammatical and syntactic, like all the grammatical differences between the languages. So we first try to filter out which of the words are the ones that are conveying meaning. Because if you say, for example, when you are talking, all the then, but, those are stop words, and those are words that we as humans use to let the other person know maybe that we're thinking, or maybe that we're gonna say another thing, but they don't convey meaning. And then you have negators, for example, like not or but, or that tell you that whatever you wanted to say, you have to invert it or cancel it, right? So she's beautiful and she's not beautiful is like she and beautiful convey meaning, but then the not word kind of inverts the meaning of the thing. So we have to be able to detect that, right? Like to model the meaning of what you're trying to say. And then if you really mean it, or if it's sarcasm, or if it's like the inverse of what you're saying. So we have a lot of mini networks that then ensemble into a huge network. That is the one that actually parses the meaning out of the sentence. And that gives you a mathematical function that kind of conveys what is like the fingerprint of the sentence you're trying to say. So we pretty much take your whole text, then classify all the words that there are in the sentence in, do they have meaning on their own or not, or do they give more meaning or not to the whole body of text. And then now we know that the words that actually have meaning, we create like a fingerprint that is the combination of all of them, because some words don't mean nothing by themselves. Like if you just say beautiful, you don't have enough context to know what is the thing that is beautiful, right? But if you say the dog, those together tell you that there's one dog, but not where or why or anything. But we know that they actually convey meaning. So we group all the meaningful words, and they then create like a whole fingerprint of the sentence that give us like the combination of all the meaning, and then correlate that measurement with what we know of psychological traits. So yeah, it's a very complex natural language processing algorithm. We have one of the highest scores in classification of text in Spanish. We have done a lot of work in Spanish that didn't exist because English has a lot more development of AI than Spanish. So in English, we kind of just amplified what already was done by Google and by Hugging Face, which is one of the leading natural language processing companies. But in Spanish, we pretty much created a lot of knowledge from scratch because there was nothing when we came into existence. So we have created a lot of technology. We were actually named one of the most innovative technology companies in Spain and in the European Union by the Ministry of Science of Spain. So we have been creating a whole lot of science, especially in math, linguistics, and computer science.
Nice. Well, congratulations for that. Sounds like you're pioneering some good technology there. And definitely with those examples, I have a clearer understanding in my head of how this works.
Awesome.
I would like to point out one other thing as well. I saw that Erudit focuses on engagement levels. I'd love to know what they mean by engagement specifically, like whether that means like, I'm assuming like how active they are with their work. But on top of that kind of explanation of what they mean by engagement, I'd love to know how that's calculated. Is that again calculated by like their communication, like how much they're talking about work versus how much they're maybe like not talking about work? Ricardo, perhaps if you feel like you're best to explain that, go ahead. But otherwise, Pablo, if you have anything to add or if you want to jump in, then feel free.
Well, I mean, the mechanics are very similar. We use the how we measure the emotional state, and we've trained the network against different accesses or different criteria, but the process is mostly the same. How we measure engagement, burnout, or friction, it all comes from the same stream of communication, either audio or text, and yeah, there's just measure up. Against different types of criteria. So in this case, the data that was used in order to train the networks was ranked against how people express commitment and joy and or how close they feel towards the subject of the discussion.
So I would love to be able to draw so that you would understand what I'm seeing in my head. But like, so in Spanish, there are 75,000 words, more or less. And then in English are around 125,000. So it's a broader language, but not everyone uses all those words all the time. So we kind of just take a lot of tweets and Reddits and Wikipedias and try to measure the frequency of the words and then just leave a small vocabulary that people use every day, around 10,000 words more or less. So then with that, we create like the shapes of the words. Like every word, we make it a small dot, and then those dots form specific shapes when they're in a sentence and when they are combined. So we correlate the shapes of the meaning of the sentence in their mathematical representation with the measurements that our team, like our psychology team, makes over those same Reddits. So we classify them. So it's supervised learning for the people who knows about machine learning. But pretty much we have the psychology team downloading Reddits and YouTube videos and tagging them over certain levels of engagement or burnout that there are in those scenes. And then we create meaningful representations of the text and the audio, and then just correlate the psychological measurements that our team evaluates with what the neural network evaluates and train a separate network over that. So the process is the same for every measurement. We can expand to every measurement that the market requires. But right now, Pablo has interviewed a lot of HR managers, and they told us that what they wanted was burnout, frictions, and engagement.
Awesome. Yeah, I can see how this could be very complex. I'm glad that you're breaking it down into a very layman's terms, especially for me coming from more of a psychology background rather than a data science background in any capacity. But I can see why you're winning awards for innovation. So well done.
Thank you.
So my next question is mostly focused on surveillance and surveillance technologies, because Computer Weekly reports that the use of workplace surveillance technologies to monitor and track staff working from home has increased hugely since the start of the pandemic, but most workers say it makes them feel uncomfortable. I understand that Erudit aims to reduce employee burnout, but could this technology be used as a form of surveillance which might exacerbate stress levels? Perhaps Pablo, if you want to go first, and maybe Ricardo, if you want to share your thoughts.
Well, first of all, there's the first principle which we cannot escape from, is that any system that is being looked at, that is being monitored, is being affected by the same principles that you are by you being looking at it. Okay, it goes from the electron scale up to groups of people. The thing is that this is a tool in order to empower people looking after their employees. it may come to for some people, for some employees to feel that way, but I would argue that the issues lie within the culture and not within the use of the tool. That being said, I mean, I'm not trying to, this is not a cop out. The tool is a rather sophisticated way of helping you doing your work better, and it comes with a certain investment. Okay, so what we've seen is that people that want to invest on the tool are motivated by keeping their employees at the jobs, with making sure that the high value employees don't go to other places, or they're not feeling the effects of the isolation or the uncertainty of these days, and want to be able to connect with them better, especially in these days where communication is harder. So you could feel that way. You could feel that this might be the impact. We are sponsoring and we are incentivizing companies to be as transparent and as communicate what they're going to do widely, and we have material at their disposal to do this. But eventually, what happens is that the motivation for companies to use our tool is directly correlated with looking after their people.
Ricardo, do you have anything you want to add on to that?
So this problem has always existed in philosophy, right? Like you are either in the Hobbian Malthusian way of life, that is that people are evil and that if you let them without a government, they will kill each other and be bad and steal and drug themselves and be lazy. Or you can be of the Aristotelian Russian kind of view, that is that people are nice and good and they can love each other if you leave them alone and they take care of themselves and each other and just like are nice people and kind. So I think we're creating this hoping for the people are good kind of view of the world, but then we are also aware that there are some people that might have bad intentions for a tool. So we try to make the tool as privacy protective as we can. So even when we measure burnout or measure engagement, we always set it up as the risk level or the percentage of risk that there is. We are not affirming anything about anyone. It's just like you should take a look on Samuel because he has a high risk of burnout. We are not saying like he's actually burnout, so fire him, or like it's just like he has a high risk of being burnout. And then the same with your emotion level, right? Like we have a certain percentage of confidence that this person is probably sad, right? So you should take a look and maybe talk to him, but then we could also be wrong. Of course, there are some measurements that we are like super sure about it, but just to make it not harmful for the person, we tell in the dashboard like we are not making a psychological diagnosis over anyone. This is just a tool that you can use to have a better administration of your attention. Because if you are a company that has, for example, some of the companies we've talked to have 40,000, 70,000, 120,000 employees. So if they wanted to pay like a psychological survey for all of their employees, they would need like huge teams and it would take months. That's why they do it every 1 or 2 years, because it takes so much logistics to make a survey that large. That with this tool, what we want is, okay, so over your 70,000 employees, we have measured the emotions and burnout and friction of all of them. And we think these 400 employees are the ones that you need to pay attention to. And then you can apply surveys, then you can have workshops with them, then you can call them with their managers to see how they are. So this has a specific name that is called reduction of the query space or the search space or the survey space. So that's what we're trying to achieve, like not diagnose anyone, just focus your attention on very specific people and reduce where you have to search to find people that need help.
Yeah, I have to admit that when I first heard about the use of surveillance technologies, I think it was even before the quarantine, perhaps. And I remember it was a company, I don't remember the name of it, but they used trackers. Essentially, they had like a necklace. The necklace monitored where you are and how long you're at your desk for, and even audio, so how long you're talking to other people for. It seemed very like Big Brother. And I think that with that company, it literally was just 100% like surveillance. So I don't think they really had the intention so much of putting the staff first. I think it was really just putting the I suppose management first. So I really do appreciate the fact that Erudit is not coming at from this angle, and I can see that if a company did want to use a very kind of like totalitarian surveillance technology, this probably wouldn't be the one they go for. And you mentioned about the employee burnout, like how it demonstrates this, oh, this person shouldn't be fired. It's just like highlighting that this person's at risk for burnout. What is the process if an employee experiences burnout? Is that dependent on the company, or does Erudit get involved with that part and give advice? I'm not sure, Pablo, if you want to go first, and then Ricardo.
Yeah, so Erudit is in its first steps, in first baby steps. So we need to choose our battles. What we want to get right first is to be able to provide that emotional state information to the HR managers, to the HR responsible people. But it is within our roadmap, within the next bite that we want to take, the next challenge that we want to tackle. Is, I mean, it's part of the whole story, you know. I mean, we help you see who might need some help or some assistance, and we can use similar intelligence in order to suggest you the preferable ways of fixing the situation. I will let Rick go deeper on this, but what we aim to achieve is to have the same level of recommendation as Netflix will have on you when it comes to movies. Okay, so right now, Samuel, this week, in order to improve his situation, would benefit from, I don't know, a yoga class or fresh fruit or a 7-day holiday or a salary raise. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But the point is not to connect the dots, not with general practices, but actually reach a level of personalization that comes to the individual.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think any employer would appreciate any of those things. A yoga class, fruit, especially a 7 days holiday. I can understand that. That was my last question, really. Is there anything you wanted to add on to that, Ricardo?
Yeah, so just to finish the surveillance topic, we're going to see a lot of human brain interfaces coming through. So if the necklace was scary, just wait for the Neuralink to come out. And then China also has one brain interface. So we're gonna see more and more of, like, for example, Oculus Rift that is completely blinding you from the real world, and a lot of AR, VR, and brain interfaces interacting with us. So right now it's weird to have someone surveilling or like listening, but there's also like Alexa and Google Home. So we just kind of forget that someone is listening, right? But if you say like Alexa this, or you say like, okay, Google this, it's listening. So you're actually being surveilled in your own home by very large companies, and like your iPhone has Hey Siri, right? So I think it's just the trust you have over the companies, right? So in Facebook is also looking at all your likes all the time. So we're being constantly surveilled by Facebook and Google and Amazon, but we kind of have no other choice with these companies. And when it comes to Erudit, people freak out, and it's like people are already being surveilled all the time, and in a lot of more dangerous ways than Erudit is doing it, right? And we at least want to help people to feel better about themselves and in their workspaces. These companies just want to collect data to sell us stuff, right? So I think we're not the actual evil surveillance company. And then about the other topic, I think that is up to the company up to now. But as Pablo said, we just need more data to be able to map out the right measurement with the right action. So we are going to start programs with our customers to find the correlation between what they did and worked with the measurements we had, but for that we need to work with the customer. And right now we're pretty much getting as much customers as we can, and making diagnosis on them, and then we might run a program to see what actions they take and work to be able to make recommendations. Because there's no black magic in what we do. It's just a mathematical model of language against psychology. It's math. There's nothing weird we're doing or anything. And then we are trying to expand that model over an action space, also learn from what people do. We could do it with reinforcement learning, like for example, DeepMind solved the playing StarCraft or folding proteins or playing Go. So reinforcement learning is also a way to do it, but we still need customers to be able to learn over. So that will happen in the future, because there's a lot of data that you need to do those kinds of things.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. And I got to say thank you for the work you're doing. I know that you have honorable intentions with helping people during this very stressful year. And I bet 2021 probably is going to be just as stressful. Well, if it's anything like 2020, hopefully it's not. Anyway, I'm going off topic, but gentlemen, if people want to keep up with what you're doing or what you folks are doing at Erudit, how can they do that?
We have LinkedIn, we have Instagram. So in social media as Erudit AI, and then we also have emails that are pretty much our first dot our last name at erudit.ai. So pablo.gil@erudit.ai, and then ricardo.michel@erudit.ai. So they can write us an email or just go to our website that is also erudit.ai, or our social media.
Yeah, and read our blog as well.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, good luck with all you're doing, and here's to many more awards on your behalf.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Samuel.
This episode is brought to you by Publicize, a digital PR company that grows businesses' online presence. And for a limited time only, exclusive to Brains Bite Back listeners, you can receive an SEO assessment as part of your package for any tier of service at no extra charge with this special promotion. To find out more, visit publicize.co/BBB. We are finished for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And as ever, you can subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. You can follow us on YouTube and go to social.co to check out all of our episodes and articles on topics just like this. We hope you join us again soon, and until next time, take care of yourself.